Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Nonlinear Project Management for the Rest of Us. My name is Matt Caton, and I'm joined today with my colleague, Patrick. Patrick is going to be watching the QA.
Everyone, thanks for joining us.
So please feel free to write any questions that you may have into the question panel throughout the demo today. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be certain to circle back and answer all of those questions that you may have. And the purpose of today's call is really to give people an idea of how the brain can be used for project management, nonlinear project management. So we're really going to be talking about some more in-depth features of the brain application to help you visualize the scope and the life cycle of all the projects that you create, whether it's a personal project that you're working on or a business-related project. We're going to have many different types of examples for you. And I know that a lot of people, in building up to this, we've received quite a few emails, actually, questions about how we can incorporate different methodologies and different project management types. Whether you're using and creating some type of Visio map or schema, or if you are actually using getting things done or a Six Sigma type of methodology for managing your project, the brain is a great application to help you visualize all that information, regardless of the way that you happen to actually manage and keep track of it. So hopefully we'll be able to share with you some different examples. And the first example that I'm going to bring up, I'm sharing my screen now, and this particular brain, the My Current Projects brain, is actually available to you to download, to download from our website. So if you go to www.thebrain.com and go to our applications page. So under support, there's a link to look at brain applications. And there's actually a project management link there where you can download this specific brain. Now, there may be different reasons why you would want to download this brain. Maybe you want to actually use this as a sandbox just to get familiar with the technology, adding and linking thoughts and using thought types and tags that we'll be talking about today. Or you can actually take this brain and manipulate the content to make it the seed for your own brain that you are creating. And that's what I'm going to do now. So let's first go on a quick tour of what this brain is and what it contains. And the first area that I'm going to jump into, I'm going to click on personal projects. Now notice that anytime I click on a thought, that thought comes into the center of the screen and displays all related information around it. So this is a basic rule of the brain. All information are called thoughts. We have our active thought in the center of the brain, parent thoughts above, and child thoughts down below, or subcategories down below. And so I've clicked down into my personal projects, and I'm currently on my kitchen renovation project. So this personal project that I'm working on is managed from this particular thought. Anything that's going into my kitchen renovation project, anything that's related to this project is going to be linked or attached to this thought in some way. As you can see, I've got Word documents associated with thoughts, so these are just simply notes on different cabinet styles I like, flooring materials, products, etc. So I just open this document at any time and continue on making modifications. Notice that down below, quite often, I'm dropping the information into a note. And really quickly on this kitchen renovation project, I've got easy access to, in this case, my kitchen designer and the main contractor that I'm working with. All the subcontractors fall under this contractors link, so I can call my plumber, my electrician, my tiling guy at any time to ask questions about when a particular installation is going to be completed or whatever the case may be. So easy access to all of that digital information. As well as, notice I've got Excel spreadsheets for part lists, and of course, I'm on a budget, a tight budget, so I'm going to be maintaining a renovation budget here on this thought for this Excel spreadsheet. Now, I've just started this project, so I probably don't have anything yet, but I'll just launch this, and you can see it launches in its native application, and I can begin my kitchen budget. So here's just the start of this document. I'll save, and that document is saved internally in my brain, so I can come back to that document, launch it in its native application, and continue making modifications at any time. And we'll talk a little bit more in detail throughout the webinar today about the difference between internal attachments versus shortcuts, and even do some importing of documents and data into the Brain as well. Also, many of these thoughts contain either graphics, so I can just mouse over and attach graphic to get a nice zoomable icon. In this case, it's the design, the look that I'm going for this, this particular kitchen design. And I also have links to web pages as well. We'll be talking about a lot of the different web links and bringing those into the Brain today. So this is just a high-level overview of bringing content into the Brain for a very personal project that I'm working on. Another example, a personal example, would be my diving thought. So here I'm actually managing an upcoming family vacation. We like to go scuba diving, and I'm keeping track of, as you can see, all the different dive sites and destinations. If there's going to be wreck diving, shark diving, and things like that. I've got links and prices to all the different dive facilities and rental equipment that I'll be utilizing. And once again, keeping track of everything with a couple of attached spreadsheets and web links to wherever I've gotten my dive certification, PADI news, my travel itinerary, all documents, everything coming into the Brain. So in this scenario, I'm actually managing an upcoming vacation and treating that like it is project management from start to finish. All the information I need is right here in my Brain. So a couple of high-level overviews of how some personal projects are managed, but also in this same Brain, I'm keeping track of some business information as well. So some different writing projects that are important to me, and this is all part of the default Brain. You can change and manipulate this content at any time. If you have a writing project, maybe you're writing a presentation for a client, you can create new thoughts at any time. So let's actually start adding some new content to this Brain. So under writing projects, I'm simply going to click and drag off of the child gate. You'll notice that each thought in the Brain has 3 small gates. So I've got a parent gate where parent thoughts are attached, child gate down below. We'll talk about this in just a moment, the jump gate. And that's where we get into that non-hierarchical relationship, information that doesn't fall into a subcategory, but it's closely related to, such as, let's say I'm writing a script for an upcoming client presentation. And so I've just created a new thought. Now, of course, I can bring documents into this thought, or I can create new documents from scratch or leave notes. In this case, I'm going to create just a couple of notes. I haven't created the document yet, but I just want an outline, what it is I need to accomplish for this client presentation. So first, I need to gather sales figures. For 2015, so I want to be able to review that. 2015. I also need to acquire some art assets, my company logo, some branding. Art. And finally, I also want to check in with legal and see if it's able, or if I'm able to disclose some of the information about sales figures we're estimating for 2017. So talk to legal about 2017 sales. So, and each one of these, I'm actually going to make this a checkbox. This is one of the more subtle features within the Brain. We'll be talking about this a few more times today as well. But checkboxes are great for project management. This is just a really quick outline. Obviously, this will be a 20 or 30 bulleted point checklist of things that I need, information that I need to really give a good client presentation. But when I gather that information, I know that task no longer needs to be completed. I can simply check that off the list. I've got my sales figures for 2015 and acquired my art, or maybe I've talked to legal and I really want to document when and who I talked to, so I'm just going to add more information, and I can continue on modifying my notes at any time. Spoke with Susan, who gave me approval. So, and I can timestamp that as well. I just really quickly click on the timestamp button right there in the notes. And so if there's any question about, wait a minute, why did you include this from my boss or from my colleagues, I can clearly reference the discussion that I had with Susan, when that took place, and who made that approval to include that in this presentation pitch for our client. And of course, continue on modifying that thought at any time. And now let's start actually attaching some content to the thought as well. Now we'll talk in just a little bit about doing some drag and drop, but for this example, I'm going to create the document from scratch right within the brain. So I'm simply going to right click on a thought and select to add an attachment. And in this case, I'm presented with an attachment list. These are different templates that I can choose from. If you do not see any content in your template list, if you haven't populated this yet, simply click on this templates button and follow these on-screen instructions. So a window, or excuse me, a directory will pop up, and anything that you bring into that folder, that directory, the brain can recognize as a possible template. So you can include company letterheads, other types of blank contracts or documents that you create for your project management day-to-day tasks can be a template for you right there in the brain. So I don't need to create a new template. I already have that populated. I'll select just a blank Word document. This opens up Word, and here is my new script. So I'll continue on editing this content. I'll save and close this. It doesn't ask me where I want to save that document to. That document is saved internally inside my brain. We'll talk a little bit more later, once again, about creating shortcuts to existing files, but creating new files from scratch right in the brain will actually save that file internally in the brain. And finally, helping me with this client presentation, I'm just going to go ahead and link this to Patrick. So there's Patrick. Patrick is a presentation expert. So I have this linked to Patrick. So if I ever have any questions about the flow or the content of this presentation, the script that I'm writing for my upcoming client demo, I can actually check in really quickly with Patrick. I can click on his thought to call him really quickly or take some notes about some ideas he's shared with me that need to be included in this document. So, and that is how we create a jump thought, something that's related to the active thought, but not necessarily, as you can see, I don't have Patrick linked down below as a child thought underneath the client presentation. It doesn't own this particular client presentation. I'm writing this, I'm responsible for it, but he is helping me out, so I'm going to have him, Patrick, linked up as a jump thought to this particular thought. And you'll see as I start creating and navigating to other areas of my brain, how this jump thought feature can potentially be used. So that's really quickly how we can get some content into the brain. Let's take a look at a few other areas of this brain. And as you can see, if you do download a copy of this brain, we've got marketing campaign samples, a lot of the different information that would go right along with a marketing campaign where we're acquiring graphic designers, target audience, etc. But also in this particular brain is a really, really helpful area called project methodologies. And we have just a couple of samples of project methodologies mapped out. The one that I really like and one that I use in all of the brains I create is getting things done. If you're not familiar with GTD, project management, it's a pretty big sort of bookmark in the history of project management. And it's really recently that Getting Things Done, written by David Allen, came out. And it's some different methodologies that you can use to maintain focus on the different projects that you have within your life. And this is one of his, what we call the natural planning project model. So number one is to create your purpose. Number two is to state what your mission is. And then you go into brainstorming. So gathering all that information and just getting it to where you can refer back to it, archive it. So you can refer back to that information at any time. Really here we're looking at quantity over quality. Then when you refine that information, we move into organizing. Now we're refining and looking for quality and setting up our next actions. And there's a whole process that we follow from there. So let's actually use this example and start adding some content. So my purpose, let's say I'm starting out a new business. Now I've linked other child thoughts to this particular brain, but let's say I'm just going to go ahead and forget this thought. So I right-click on a thought and select to forget. I'm creating a whole new purpose. That was for a previous example. This particular example, let's say I'm going to create a new business where I'm using recycled metal from cars to make affordable bicycles. So we'll call it Bicycle Recycle. So Bicycle Recycle is the purpose. I'm going to put down a note on my new business that the purpose really is to make affordable bikes from recycled materials. So it's that easy to get started. Step number one, my purpose of Bicycle Recycle. Step number two is my mission. So my mission for Bicycle Recycle is actually going to be, I'm going to create a new thought, service all active people worldwide. That's a great example, a thought that I created earlier. I also want to be profitable. I really want to make a difference. And so it's going to be all about keeping the world green, etc., make a difference. And let's say I also want to expand to, now here I am in Los Angeles working on this project. I want to expand to Chicago. And I'll use another trick within the brain, multiple thoughts, individual thoughts at one time. So I type in a semicolon, expand to New York. So there's a couple of different missions I have, sort of steps along the way. I might achieve, one before the other, but eventually I want to achieve, my mission is to achieve all these individual goals. And so for brainstorming, these are other thoughts. I'm just going to move these to the side for another project. This particular project, for brainstorming, maybe the first thing I want to do is start setting up some relationships with metal scrapyards so I can find my materials to build my bikes. Obviously, I need to work on a design, but I also need to find a scrapyard. And let's go ahead and start with that. I'm actually going to use a feature built right into the brain. So right now, we're just brainstorming, adding new content about this project, and I'm going to hit F4 when I'm on this thought, and that is the brain's way of searching the web. A really, really great sort of hidden feature built right into the brain. So on any thought that you create, is there already some content out there in the world that you need to be familiar with? Maybe there's competitors, maybe there's something that will benefit you. I search the web, and I'm searching specifically for, we'll say, New York metal scrapyard. So I can search for Google, MSN, Yahoo, etc. I'll go ahead and stay with Google. And here we go. We've got some great different search results. TNT scrapyard. That looks great. Let's go ahead and click on that, TNT scrap. And this is someone I definitely want to get a hold of. They might have all of the materials I'm looking for to start this crazy new business idea that I have. So I'm going to drag, after I've done some research, I'll just drag this website right into my brain. So at any time, I can get back to this TNT scrap metal website to look up their phone number or find some content. Or maybe I just even want to copy that phone number or copy some content down below. Let's say I see a little quote that I really like. I can just copy that and right here in the brain, right-click and paste that information right into the notes section. So different ways to get content into the notes section. Oh, and I meant to do that for this thought. So I'll activate TNT Scrapyard, right-click and paste, and clear that up off of the thought up above. So it's important to point out that you can go back and make modifications and changes at any time. And let's say this action actually takes place. I go through these steps. We're opening up a New York office. We found a facility to where we can actually start rolling out some of our products. And obviously, I've made a connection with the scrapyard folks. So Now I'm going to move this on into either organizing. I need to find a person to manage this particular process, or it's going to be my steps. So I'm going to move this scrapyard over into next actions and remove it from brainstorming. So I link scrapyard to next actions and right click on brainstorming and unlink. So next actions, there are my links and information to all the relationships that I'm building up in the scrapyard. So this is one way to get your content organized, create certain areas for all of your thought processes to go through, or all of your project management processes to go through. A lot of times people look at project management as step one, or phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And it's really easy to create those as individual thoughts in your brain and move items through those different processes. Another way that you can actually facilitate visualizing what category the particular project is in at any time is to create thought types. Thought types within the brain are a really, really great way to identify sort of the classification of a particular project that you're working on, or a thought, or a document that you're working on. Rather than connecting it to a specific thought, we can create these thought types so we can easily visualize what it is we happen to be looking at on the screen. So here you can see I have an example of some of the different project types, thought types I've created in this brain. So we've got completed projects, green light projects. That means they're active, but they haven't really taken off yet. Hot projects, something I'm currently focusing on. Stalled projects. I can even create a new thought type for deleted projects or projects that aren't working. And I'll create some new thought types in just a moment. But first, I'm actually going to utilize these existing thought types. So I'm going to jump back over using my past thought list. I'll scroll back to a recent thought that I was on, which is my bicycle recycle. So this project is really taking off. It's been a green light project, so I can right click and select one of my existing thought types. So I can select the green light project. There it is, down under my projects list. It's not only green light project, maybe it's moved on from just being accepted as a green light project to a hot project. It's my current focus. So notice I can change a thought type at any time. So you can even use thought types as different phases along the way, or thought tags. We'll talk about those as well. So I'm going to change this from a green light project to a hot project. So this is a current active project that I'm working on. This business is really taking off. We've opened our New York office. All of my notes and files and documents are associated with this particular thought. I can start linking them up here. And I really want to get back to this thought as often as possible. So I'm going to right click on the thought and select to create a pin. And a pin is really just a nice shortcut to a specific thought in your brain. So quite often we're working on more than one project at a time. Some have our focus and some are supposedly on the back burner, so to speak. But this bicycle recycle is a project that I'm really, really focused on right now. So at any time, let's say I'm working in a different area of my brain, I'm thinking a little bit more about my upcoming scuba trip, but I receive a phone call from Patrick. He's got some great information about bicycle recycle, and so I can easily just click on the pin to get directly to that thought. So you may notice in many of the different demos that we give, we always have different pins for different brains that we have open. And it's really just a hot topic for that specific brain, something that has our current focus that we're navigating to quite frequently. So you can click on those pins to get to a specific thought at any time. So those are the different thought types that you can create. And you can see this particular brain has a long list of available thought types. We're going to talk about how those were created a little bit later in the demo today, but we've got some great ways for you to import existing thought types and tags into your brain to help you identify them. But before we get there, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new brain from scratch using some of the features that I've shared with you so far to show you how quickly and easy it is to get started, whether you want to create an individual brain for your upcoming project that you're going to be managing, or add that project management task into an existing brain. I just want to show you from scratch in a clean brain how quickly you can actually start facilitating the project management for something you're working on within the Brain application. So I'm going to create a new brain. Let's say my bicycle recycle thing really took off. Now we're going to make electric bicycles. So electric recycle. Now, I mentioned earlier, how did all of these thought types and tags get populated? And this is exactly it. Notice that when I'm creating a new brain, I'm presented with the option to bring in some type of template. These are built right into the brain, and they contain existing thought types, thought tags, and in most cases, existing thoughts as well. So I'm not going to select one of these templates for now, but I just want to point out that they are there. So if you really want to create a new business brain, you can actually select this business template, populate a brain with thought types, tags, and thoughts themselves, and then modify that content to make it fit your business criteria. I will demo that a little bit later today, but for now, we're starting off with just a clean slate. So just a single thought, electric recycle. And now it's up to me to start adding some content. How am I going to keep track of this project, and what is sort of the life cycle of the project itself? So phase one is going to be all of my research. And then I'm going to add a semicolon, so I'm creating individual thoughts at one time. Phase two that I'll be looking at is my development. Phase three is going to be testing, product testing. And finally, phase four is implementation. So that includes all of the sales and marketing, etc. And I spelled that wrong actually on purpose, just so you can see that the brain actually has a wonderful spell check. You may have noticed as I was typing in notes, if I goofy finger something, it's actually going to underline in red, and the brain will help me identify misspellings. A really great feature, particularly for bad spellers such as myself. So here I've created sort of my high-level process for managing this new business, this project. Let's actually take this a little bit further, though, and add some interesting icons so that I can visually identify the areas of my brain that I happen to be in. So for research, I'm just going to right-click on a thought and select to add a thought or select a thought icon. And so this is the brain's thought icon library. There's different categories, so I can go directly, if I want, to the business category. I want to keep some fun, sort of light-hearted types of icons here. So for research, let's actually go down to technology. And so for research, maybe I want like a telescope or something like that, or maybe even just a computer screen. So I'll do this computer screen for research. Now we're getting into development. I'm just going to set up thought icons for all of these thoughts really quickly. So I select a thought icon for development. And here I'll go down into business. And development can be maybe just a nice little clipboard. Finally, testing. Maybe the clipboard would have worked for testing. But notice you can change these at any time. I can come back and let's say I select a thought icon, and I'll select this book. I don't like it, not a problem. Right click, select a thought icon. And for testing, maybe I want to come down to science, like a beaker or something. Maybe the rocket ship looks good. And finally, implementation. So right click, and we go to our select thought icon and choose something in finance. So I just want the $sign there, because now we're actually selling our products. So a really, really simple process, but adding these icons give me a nice visual identity of the category or the step that I'm in along the way. Anytime I see that $sign, I know I'm talking more about sales and marketing, whereas the rocket ship is more about all of the product testing and feasibility, etc. So first is my business research, not necessarily product research, but business research. And so my categories here are going to be things like creating an online community, and maybe hiring engineers, and finally, pre-marketing. Even before the business takes off, I want to do a little bit of pre-marketing just to start building a buzz. Under implementation, I'll create my marketing thought. And I actually want to link these two together, pre-marketing, so before the business even exists, I want to create a little buzz that's going to be in social media and spreading the word with friends and family and colleagues about this exciting new business, see if other investors or people want to come on board. Whereas my marketing is I have a tangible product and we're getting it out there, building a website, etc. But let's link these two thoughts. So from marketing, I'm going to start typing in pre-marketing, and notice I just type in a few letters. The brain already knows I have a thought that matches this criteria, whatever it is that I've typed in so far. So I can double click an existing thought, and that helps the brain reduce duplication of thought names and clutter. And it's a really, really great utility to rely on the brain to show you this thought already exists, and you can easily link two thoughts together. So for example, let me go back to electric recycle. I also need to start keeping track of my team that I'm going to be creating. And so there's myself, and let's say Patrick and Shelly are all members of my team. So I create thoughts for each individual person. If they're responsible for a task or a project at any time, so Patrick, let's say Patrick is really going to be heading up the marketing. I'll just type in a few letters, there it is, and I link Patrick all the way back over to that marketing thought. So anytime I'm researching and looking at the marketing for our products, I know if I want to talk to the specialist in that category, Patrick is the person I can click on his link where I'm keeping track down below in the notes of all his different tasks and projects and so forth, and know if he has time to answer these marketing questions that I may have for him. Let's come back to the home thought, and let's start now bringing some more content in. I'm also going to be working on, let's say in this pre-marketing, I have some existing documents to bring into the brain. Now you saw me earlier where I was actually linking or creating new thoughts from scratch rather, and I mentioned linking to existing thoughts. So that's what we're going to do now. And I actually have some existing documents here. And I simply need to bring these into the brain, this existing content. So the default to drag and drop into the brain is actually to create a shortcut. Now, the first document is I've got this product specs. So my pre-marketing, I want to talk a lot about, how much we're spending on the different products for these electric bikes that we're building. So I'm going to be referencing these prices and our sales quotas and how much the different products cost for us to build the bike. So I'm simply going to drag and drop this product specs right into the brain. The default for dragging and dropping into the brain is to create a shortcut. So I actually have a shortcut back to that existing document. Now I can right-click on this shortcut to select to move the file in or copy the file into the brain. So I know that it's a shortcut a number of ways. Number one, that's the brain's default, but also if I look at the Thought Tool tab for this product specs thought, I can see where the actual thought resides. The Thought Tool tab is always going to tell you more information about any attachments associated with that thought, whether it's internal or a shortcut. Let's bring an internal attachment in. Now, again, I can right-click and move this file into the brain to make it internal, or I can use a shortcut. I'm going to hold down Control-Shift on the keyboard, and this time, let's say I'm going to grab this welcome presentation. Control-Shift, and drag and drop into the brain. And notice that the document disappeared from its existing location. It's been moved into the brain. I'm also noticing that the word welcome is spelled wrong on this document, so I'm really quickly going to fix that. So we can modify the document at any time. We can modify the name of the document, so I can rename this from the Thought Tool tab. I'm actually now just renaming that PowerPoint presentation to be spelled correctly. And also within the brain, and this is very important for project management, because depending on the type of project you're working on, quite often you're dealing with version control as well. I know that people that work in marketing and sales, quite often they've got maybe a presentation for client A, client B, client C, etc., and they make modifications to pre-existing documents. I'm going to do the same with my welcome presentation. This is a little outdated. I want to save this version, so I'm just going to highlight it and use the brain to copy and paste. I've got 2 attachments on this thought now. It's saying 3 because I actually opened one in the background. But on this particular document, the copy, I'll rename this to Welcome Presentation 2016. So I just know that it's a little bit more up to date. I'll rename my old one Welcome Presentation 2015. So I can rename my file attachments and I can keep track of version control. I do that quite a bit in the brains that I use if I'm creating documents, presentations. I'll actually save the original that I have and continue on modifying it in a copy or a new version right there on the thought. Now, additionally, we've done drag and drop to bring a shortcut into the brain. I've shown you different ways to move a file into the brain, and I want to point out a few things about those features. First, the advantage to moving files into the brain is that when I sync this brain to the cloud, to webbrain.com, I have access to all of my internal attachments online. Everything that I've done in this brain is just local, just for me on this desktop, on my work desktop here at the office. But I can sync this brain. So I'm going to click on sync. Notice this brain has never been synced. I'll sync this brain to the cloud account. It'll take just a minute to upload those changes. There you go. It's already done. And I'll go ahead and open up my account online. So I go to thebrain.com and log in. And, oops, that's the wrong account. Let me log in with the correct account. And I've synced this brain to the cloud, and on my account page, this is my Team Brain page. We'll talk about that as well in just a moment. On my account page, there's Electric Recycle. You can see it's already available for me online. So I can click, and as you can see, I've got access to this brain online, and Patrick will be showing us some of the online features as well in just a moment. But in order for him to do that in this brain, I want to share this brain with Patrick. So because I've upgraded my account to Team Brain Services, and there's more information about Team Brain on our website at thebrain.com, go to the products page and down to Team Brain. But this allows me to actually go into my brain settings. I'll keep this brain private, but I'm going to add Patrick. And let me uncheck. He might not be a member of my specific team. There's Patrick Thompson. So I'm adding Patrick Thompson as an editor to this particular brain. So Patrick will eventually, when he's ready, be able to open this brain online. And even if he wants, he can download his own local copy, make changes, make modifications to that particular brain, sync them back to the cloud, and I'll have access to them as well. So we've now taken this brain that began as a project management guidance brain just uniquely for me, and I've shared it with Patrick. Patrick will be able to actually open and make his own modifications to this brain. I'd like to make a few more changes first before I send this over to Patrick. I'm going to go back to my local desktop version. And also under, let's jump over to development. So for development, not only do we need to develop the product, we also need to develop a nice web design. So I'm creating a thought for all of my new web content. And I just want to share with you, because this is a feature that gets used quite often within the brain. I have some existing content, and here's just a web page I recently found. Very interactive. There's all kinds of slides and buttons and gizmos. It's going to be really, really fun for our website if we can do it. And maybe I want to check with our engineering department and our team, can we design a web page that looks as cool as this one? So I'm simply going to drag and drop this right into the brain. So anytime you drag and drop from the cloud into the brain, it creates a new thought. And the thought name, you can see this thought is called Celebrating the 40th Anniversary of Apollo 11, blah, blah, blah. I'm not really so interested in the name of the thought. That's cool, that's great, but I really just want to see if my design team can emulate this type of technology for our product. So I'm really going to quickly rename this. I'll just call it Moon Site. And the label, Great Buttons and Technology. And there's another site that I like as well. I'm going to go back to web. And this site, once again, highly interactive as I scroll through. This is really cool. Some website about Lost World Fair Atlantis, whatever that is. But what I like is the real simple graphics on this. If we can't do something as detailed as that Apollo 11 site, can we at least get some fun moving graphics? So I'll link up to this thought as well. And again, I just drag and drop from my browser, and I'll give this the label Fun, Moving, Simple Graphics. So I'll sit down and open these. I may have dozens of different web pages to review with my designers, or maybe I want Patrick to take a look at these to tell me which one would he be able to roll out quickly for our clients. So he can review these and get back to me later, but he'll be able to mouse over these thoughts and see that there's one that's fun, moving, simple graphics, great buttons, and technology actually happening on the website. So I can visually identify which website I'm interested if I'm in a presentation or just doing my own research by mousing over that thought. And then one last component that I wanted to share with you about bringing content to manage your projects into the Brain is actually doing a couple of different types of imports. So let me really quickly, here in my web research, actually let's jump over to marketing. I think I probably have an existing folder with some marketing content. So let me open up on my C drive. Here I am in eSolutions, and I have a marketing folder. So a lot of content already about marketing. Let's say this directory is all about this project that I'm working on. Rather than dragging and dropping one document at a time, bringing all of this content into the Brain, I want to import this folder into the Brain, get it into the Brain, sync it to the cloud, so Patrick will have access to all of these documents as well. So from the thought that I want to do my import into, I'll go up to File and select to import. And here you can see under our import are all the different options that we have for importing into the Brain. It's really nice to be able to import outlines in Word, so a Word document that's tab delineated, and in columns, imports very nicely into the Brain, so do Excel spreadsheets. In this example, I'm going straight to a folder, so I'm going to navigate on my C drive into my directory for marketing. There it is. I'll go ahead and select Save, and the Brain confirms I want to do this import. It can be undone. I can go through, you see me forget thoughts, I can go through and delete thoughts and content at any time. And here I sort of doubled up marketing and marketing. I'm going to fix that for you in just a second as well. But notice that this area of the Brain now reflects this marketing directory. So on the marketing thought, here in the marketing folder, I had ad campaign and my launch party. That now exists as internal attachments in my Brain. If I go into my graphics directory, there's all my graphics, 2 subfolders and more graphics. So here, graphics, those are my 2 subfolders, banners, big stock, and all my graphics located down below. And of course, when I mouse over, the very first attachment or graphic, it becomes the zoomable icon for that thought. So some great options for you to do some importing into the Brain. Let's go ahead and fix this. Now I've got marketing with all this content. This is the marketing thought I want to keep. This one I want to get rid of. So I'm going to link this marketing thought to implementation. I'll jump thought. You can see how quickly I can just do a little bit of gardening within my Brain, and let's forget this marketing thought. I'll even share a shortcut with you. If I hold down the Shift key, I'll go right to delete. So I click on Shift, and I can permanently delete that old marketing thought with content I didn't need, and that moves this thought, because I linked it up to implementation, into its place. So nice, clean display, all my marketing information that I already had imported right into my Brain. Once again, I can sync this content. So all of those internal attachments. This one will take a little bit longer because I think some of these files are rather large. There you can see the importing is taking place. And Patrick will now have access to all of this documentation as well. And so with that, I'd like to send things over to you now, Patrick, and you can open this Brain online, and we'll talk a little bit about the online features and how we can start collaborating and the benefits of collaborating within the Brain.
Great, sounds good. All right, so what I can do is now I can visit thebrain.com and log into my account, and from here I can check under the brains shared directly with you. These are brains shared with me by other Team Brain members. I can see that I have the electric recycle brain here that Matt just shared with me. So everything that he just synced is available in this brain. If I look for marketing, let's go ahead and check out that one since he just, oh, here it is. So you can see all those recent thoughts that he just imported in. And now what I can do is I can actually make a new thought. Add my own notes in here. And then I can do something, I can create a new tag here for Matt just so he knows that I want him to take a look at this. And everything I'm doing here is automatically saved. So now when Matt syncs his brain locally, he'll get all of these changes I'm doing here online. I can also work on this locally if I open up the brain and go to my brain list. And I can do that by going to File and Close Brain. If I had any brain open already, I can go down to the bottom of the list. All of my online only brains are down here at the very bottom. And you'll see that I have electric recycle here. I can just click this drop down menu and choose download for local use. You'll see I have the status in the upper right hand corner. That should only take a few seconds since it's a pretty small brain. And once it's downloaded, I'll get a pop-up letting me know that it's ready. And it'll ask me where I want to save this brain locally on my machine.
And Patrick, I also like seeing that I was working on a PC, you're working on a Mac, and it's important to point out that these brains are cross-platform compatible. So Patrick has no problem opening up a... Yep.
So I'll just go ahead and I'll save this to my default brains folder that I usually save my brains to. So now here, if I go to, let's see, marketing, you'll see all the information that Matt added, and then also the information I just added online with the tag and my notes.
Great. So Patrick, I think I'll take presenter back now, and I want to share with everyone that those changes are now available on my end that you've made, and share with everyone a few of the advantages. Patrick actually highlighted a couple of key areas that I really like. First off, he created a new tag, and we didn't get a chance too much to talk about thought tags today. Thought tags are another great example of how you can classify the information that you're creating and managing. So now you can see I'm actually doing the sync right now, so it's uploading those most recent changes. And already I can see that I have this new thought called web design. And I'd like to create a couple of thought tags. Actually, that tag won't show up until my sync is completed. But in the meantime, let's say I want to really tag Patrick for marketing. So there's a different process online as there is on the local version. Patrick right-clicked. You can do that here on the desktop as well. Right-clicked to create a new tag for me. And there you can see it just popped up right there in the background. So Patrick created a new thought tag called Matt, and so I can clearly identify what tasks I can open up my brain on Monday morning or what have you, and see that Patrick's gotten a little bit of work done, and he wants to bring my attention to this thought, web design. So I can go directly to this thought, and obviously there's some notes to discuss. I can leave some notes for Patrick, and Patrick, no time, and actually maybe I'll leave this at the top of the So I'm just going to push that down, and I'll even give this a little bit of spacing. So tons of different formatting features. And I'll just leave a little note for Patrick to see next time he logs in. No time for me to discuss. Will you handle with Travis? Or I'll just say assign to Travis. Thank you, spell check. I'll right click, assign to Travis. So that's what I need to say. I'll bring this to Patrick's attention by Travis isn't a member of this brain yet. Maybe we'll make him a member later, but for now, I just want Patrick to assign this task to Travis. So I'm going to create a new thoughts tag called Patrick and send this right back to Patrick. So when Patrick once again logs in, he'll be able to see that he needs to modify this thought or this content or has some tasks to take care of. And also, I probably shouldn't have modified this one because I wanted to show you additionally in the reports. If I refresh my reports, now that I've modified it, oh, there it is. It's still showing up currently as Patrick. But any thought that Patrick modifies, I'm going to actually be able to see, as you can see right here on web design, that it was recently modified. So Patrick was the most recent person. My changes haven't been synced. They haven't been saved up to the cloud yet. Patrick was the most recent person to modify this particular thought. So, and as soon as I save my changes, it'll update that content that I'm the most recent update. So another feature of managing your project in a team environment is running those reports to see who's modified which particular thought and when. So I think that wraps up everything that we wanted to cover today. And we shared a lot of different examples of ways to managing your projects, whether you're creating thought tags and types, or just simply creating thoughts within your brain and moving thoughts through different steps, phases, or processes within your brain. A lot of different opportunities for you to manage your projects from within your brain. And with that, Patrick, I'll ask if there are any questions that we have in the GoToMeeting question panel that we can cover here for the next, stay on the line for about another 5 or 10 minutes and answer any questions you may have.
Absolutely. We did have a couple of questions. We had a couple of similar questions from Amit and Brendan about dragging and dropping other file formats. Amit specifically wanted to know about dragging and dropping Dropbox files.
Okay.
And also email drag and drop from webmail and Outlook, if you can kind of go over
great.
those.
A lot of questions there. Fantastic. So first, in regards to drag and drop, as I mentioned, a local document, a local file, whether it's a Word document, a spreadsheet, whatever it is, you drag and drop it into the brain. It creates a shortcut back to that thought. Now, if you really want all of your files to be internal attachments, I do typically on the brains I create, you can go into options and into preferences and select under the UI tab. On drag and drop, all of your files are moved into the brain rather than linked into the brain. So it is an option for you to change the default. So you can get those files internally into your brain. Now, really quickly, when a file is internal in your brain, it'll be synced to the cloud. So all those internal attachments that were imported in my folder, everyone has access to those that have access to my brain on the cloud. So Patrick has full access to download those files, delete them from the brain, modify them in any way. They're internal in the brain. When you move a file internally in your brain, it is it's not compressed and it's not renamed in any way as well. There's a files directory in your brain database, and all of your internal attachments will reside there. Now, creating shortcuts to files. That actually brings us into Dropbox and email, etc. Because a shortcut to an existing file doesn't move the file into the brain, it just preserves the shortcut. If I had shortcuts in my brain, I sync my brain to the cloud, Patrick accesses my brain, or I access my brain online, all I'll have is the path to the file, not the actual internal attachment, just the information about where the file actually resides. So I prefer to import all of my local attachments, get those into the brain. Dropbox, however, you have a URL for every thought within the brain, or every thought within Dropbox, rather. I don't use Dropbox because I use the brain for file sharing or what have you. But if you're using Dropbox and you would like to implement and attach 2 thoughts in your brain, maybe you've got some really large 2 or 20 gig files that you don't want to move into the brain. You want to keep it stored on Dropbox but have a nice link. You can go online to Dropbox.com. Let's see if I have time to do this really quickly. So I'm going to log into Dropbox if I can remember my login. I've got a, oops, that's an ad. Well, that'll still get there. So let's go ahead and log in.
And also while you're doing that, Matt, you can actually drag and drop the files from your local Dropbox folder as well. Or
That's
grab
correct.
the share link from there.
Right. So Dropbox will have a local directory as well, and that behaves just like the typical file and folder structure. So you can move them from wherever you're saving all of your Dropbox locally, your Dropbox files. You can drag and drop from there or link to there. Typically what I see most often is people like to store their files in Dropbox so they've got access to it online. And then notice that every thought here has a share button. And this is true for OneNote, Evernote, Google Drive, Google Docs. They all have this share option. Sometimes you need to right click, open up share, share link. They name them different things. Typically the word share is used, and there it is, copy link. So I'm copying a link to this Edgar Allan Poe document. And in the Brain, let me go back to the Brain, close that, and I right click and I paste web link. So this is going directly to my Edgar Allan Poe document that is stored in Dropbox online. And I can launch and go directly to that document. There it's opening up in Dropbox. So many different ways that you can link to Dropbox, whether it's the local Dropbox directory or online. You can get that share link so you can easily link and access online files from Dropbox. And actually the email question that came up, very similar process. I'm going to go into my Gmail account. And so this is, let me jump into one of my personal accounts. And so I can really quickly open up, here's a, sorry everyone, I like the Milwaukee Bucks, so I get emails on Milwaukee Bucks. And let's say I really like this pregame sale, it's a really nice flyer, email flyer. I'd like to use this as a possible presentation for my new products for my business. So from Gmail, the unique thing about Gmail is that every individual email has its own unique URL. So just like I drag and dropped web documents earlier, or web sites earlier, I can do the same from Gmail. Drag and drop, and this goes directly not just to Gmail, but to specifically the Milwaukee Bucks Gmail that I just had open. And now I can just rename this. It calls all the links Gmail. I'll just simply rename this to sample email for customers. So sample products email. So there's a sample product email that, again, I can share with my engineers. Can we develop some type of layout like this for our emails? Now, lastly, because Outlook came up, Outlook is a little bit different. Outlook, when I open, I can actually drag and drop Outlook items. And let's say I've got this, let's see if I can find some nice little sample. Here's a nice, well, once again, there's Milwaukee Bucks. So let's open up, download the pictures. Yes, so there's our email. It's actually the same email. Let's grab something else if we can. Shorewood Community Newsletter. There's another product. Okay, so this particular, again, just a sales thing that I like for whatever reason, I'm going to drag and drop from Outlook into the Brain. And notice that it created a new thought for me, but it goes one step further. And this is a unique integration that we have specifically with Outlook. Not only do I have a link back to the original message, But take a look at the notes section. Right there in the notes are all of the graphics and the text and everything that was included in that email. I was trying to click around and find an email with a lot of graphics in it. This certainly fills the bill. So whatever this big mouth bubbler water dispenser thing is, I've got all of this email laid out in sort of it's like an HTML preview. It's going to try to preserve the formatting. Some emails get very complicated. You can see this one had all kinds of tables and things that show up with little frames. But still, all the products are there. And if I scroll down to the bottom, any text for that content, that's all going to be displayed there as well. So a unique integration with Outlook. Only Outlook has that HTML preview of the content. And finally, you can also control drag and drop from Outlook to archive that email. That way you can delete the original. And we'll do that really quickly. So here's this Brain Technologies email. Once again, does it have some nice pictures? Yeah, it does. So I'm going to control drag and drop. And I held the control key down on the keyboard. And notice the icon is just a little bit different. That's because this is saved internally as a .msg file. So big question with a lot of different capabilities, Dropbox, Outlook, web-based emails, all of those can come into your Brain as well.
Excellent. And William had a question on how to manage multiple brains, linking between multiple brains and quickly getting to different brains.
Great, great. And I believe I had a conversation with William prior to today's webinar, and he had mentioned he was going to be presenting me with this question. So I'm glad, William, you're able to join the call, and thank you for your interest. And let's go ahead and talk about linking from brain to brain, and that is important as well. Sometimes with project management, your products or projects are related, but you don't necessarily want them in one massive brain. This is my brain for project A, this is my brain for project Z. But if they share some of the same steps or some of the same components, so let's say here in this brain, my implementation area, let's say I've built this out and I really, really like how we're implementing our electric recycle. If you remember back in that other brain, we talked about just a basic bicycle company where we're making using recycled materials to build just pedal bikes. Let's say I want to bring this implementation, these implementation steps. I'm going to right click on this thought and select to, if I scroll down, where is copy? There it is. No, that's not it. Sorry. There it is. Copy local thought URL. Sorry, I was glancing right over it. So every individual thought within the brains you create have a local URL. So you can link to them from either other applications in some scenarios or from brain to brain. Now, also, since this brain has been synced online, there's an online URL. So this is different, the local thought URL versus the online URL that I can get by logging into the website. But in this scenario, I'm copying the local thought URL, and now I'm going to jump back into that My Projects brain that I started with earlier today, and I just want to reference from my bicycle recycle area. I'll right-click and paste the thought URL. So this thought that I've just created has a linked attachment. What is the attachment? It's a thought in another brain. So the brain follows its general rule for all attachment. It's going to open whatever that attachment is in its native application, which means this brain is going to close as soon as I click on that button. The other brain is going to open up, and it'll take me directly to my thought called Step 4 Implementation. So I click, brain number 1 closes, brain number 2 opens. So I jump back and forth between brains. In this brain, I can create a link back to that first brain and just bounce back and forth between the two, if that's of interest to you. So very easy to link brains. We can even take this further and merge two brains together. It's a little bit more of a detailed process, but notice I can click on File and select to merge another brain directly into this brain. So we can merge brains, we can segment brains. All of those are possible steps.
Great. One last question from Elizabeth. Is it possible to manually rearrange thoughts?
Yes, you certainly can. You can manipulate the display of the thoughts. You can manipulate the look and feel of the Brain. There's a lot of functionality changes. I just closed my Brain. Let me open it right back up again. I'm running a lot of resources over the web meeting here. But there are a few different options for you. Now, notice I'm in the default, which is alphabetical view of the Brain. So that's why I labeled them 1, 2, 3, 4. That's really the easiest way to decide in a grouping of thoughts which thought displays first, which displays last, etc. But you can also, notice I can right-click and arrange thoughts by thought type. So if I've got large brains with areas of specific thought types, I can put all type A into display first, type B, etc. I'll open up a Brain that demos that. Or I can actually display by creation date or activation date. Activation date is sort of the popularity contest. This is a very popular view. So I'm most often going into step 4, implementation. So therefore, that's the first thought that appears on the list. If I go to step 2 and then come back, step 2 now appears first on the list. So some people like their Brain that way with whatever I clicked on last in a grouping, I want that to appear first on the list since it's fresh on my mind. We can also go into what we call the expanded view. So if I right-click and I change the view, or I can use the buttons up here, view buttons, I'll go into show a new expanded view. And now I can decide specifically where I want all of my thoughts to reside on the screen. Let me move my Brain over here to the over to the left. Testing I haven't done anything with yet, but step 1, then step 2, and I'll move step 4 over here. So wherever I drag my thought to and release it, that is where it's going to stay. You notice if I mouse over a thought, you can see that solid white light, white dot. That means that's an anchor. That thought is anchored. If I uncheck that, then notice I'll move this thought around, and step 2 follows it. Hopefully you can see that in the go-to meeting. So if it's not anchored, whatever thought it's connected to, when that thought moves, it's going to follow it around. If I anchor it, then it is not going to move. And I can hover over thoughts to expand. So I'm going to expand implementation. And I'll take my marketing down here and expand marketing. Marketing was linked to Patrick, who is part of my team. So here you can see I've got a more detailed view of how my Brain is fitting together, sort of step back and get an overview of my entire Brain. If you've got the screen real estate, sort of off screen here, I have a very large monitor. Sometimes I bring my Brains over and I expand all the thoughts to get sort of a general overview of a project that I'm working on. Really, really great option for project management, just to see where everything is, where it's connected, what might be missing, or what isn't linked properly and needs to get shuffled and moved around. So that's called the expanded view. And you can actually save your expanded views as well. So at any time, I can go up to my view, now that I'm in this expanded view, and I'll save this expanded view as, I'll just call it overview. So at any time, if I go back to my normal and I'm using my normal view, going through my sort of day-to-day process, the rest of my team comes in, I want to show them the overview view. I'll go up to view and load up that view, and it takes me directly back to that same structure that I recently had. So a few different options for you for how you're viewing and manipulating and navigating through your Brain. And with that, Patrick, are there any other urgent questions? Because we're about 10 minutes over the hour now.
Nope, that covers it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone, for joining Patrick and I today to demonstrate different ways to use your Brain for project management. I hope you will take some of these to task and actually start using the Brain in different projects that you're working on. If at any time you have any questions about the Brain that you're working with and want to contact us, please do so. We're always available for you at support@thebrain.com. We'd love to hear any questions you may have. And once again, the very first Brain that I opened up today was the My Projects Brain. You can download the My Projects Brain from our website. If you go to www.thebrain.com/apps, APPS, you can find the link to a previously recorded project management webinar, as well as a link to download that Brain that I had open. So you can actually start utilizing that Brain for your own purposes. And Patrick, did you have anything to for our visitors to take away today?
Just the reiteration to the same thing you said. If you have any questions, always feel free to email us at support@thebrain.com. You can also give us a call. And also check out our forums, forums.thebrain.com. We have lots of user input there, as well as input from us here at The Brain.
Great, great. That's a great idea. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week. And as always, enjoy your brain. Thanks, everyone.